this the signal? Okay, we're ready. All right, well, good evening and welcome to the conversation on diversity that Councilmember Clark and myself, Deputy Mayor Peck, announced last week. I apologize. The meeting was noticed incorrectly. It was supposed to just be a conversation on diversity. The diversity coordinator position is not something that is really going to be discussed tonight, because we have council in our 2016 budget session directed Mr. Roloff to study the position of a diversity coordinator, basically find out what other communities are doing, what the job description is, if there's ways that we can address some of the issues that have been brought forward related to diversity through some type of a partnership agreement with other organizations, and what the costs of what the position would be budgeted at, how are we going to pay for it and that. So tonight we're really not going to be talking about diversity or the diversity coordinator position. We're going to be more just talking about focusing on diversity, and as I indicated last week, it's to begin the discussion about diversity. Now, so that's my opening statement, and I'll let Kyle say some things here.
I think the purpose of my participation in this is to encourage the community to talk about what diversity means to us, and then we've directed the structure side to Mr. Roloff. So this is the conversation to have. What are we seeing? What does it mean to us, so that we're all speaking the same language? Because if we can't speak the same language, we can't discuss anything beyond that. So getting us all on the same page and kind of understanding what diversity means to the members of our community is where I would like to focus tonight. And one of the things that came up in my conversations was, we've got this poster over here about being civility and the civility pledge that we made. I don't know if there's a camera that can zoom in on that, Andy, but to me that's where it starts, and then that's our foundation. So the being inclusive and actually listening to people's conversations, that's what tonight is about, making sure that we're speaking the same language and getting a good foundation for understanding where we're coming from. Okay. So with that, I'm going to...
All right. Well, with that, one of the things I want to start out with is that, you know, there's the old joke about if you have three attorneys in a room and you ask them a question, you're going to get three different opinions. So with that, what I'd like to do is open this up, and I'm going to ask everyone in here, you don't all have to answer, but if someone would like to take the microphone and tell me what your definition of diversity is, that I think is a good place to start. So anybody want to volunteer what their thoughts are on what diversity is within our community?
I'm not afraid.
Okay. No problem. All right.
My name is Jane Doherty, and I see diversity as a mixture and intermingling of cultures. Yeah, that's what I would like to see, more intermingling and a mixture of cultures and life experiences.
Okay, so you're saying it's a mixture, but how do you foresee getting to that point?
Well, that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Because that's, you know, that's why I'm here, because I want to be cognizant of what's going on in Oshkosh, and how can I be a better citizen by involvement in getting the total community aware of each other. Yeah.
So kind of to kind of say or tie on to something Kyle said is listening to each other, understanding each other, and maybe the correct term is, instead of talking at each other, we should talk to each other, and instead of just listening, we should start hearing.
And involvement.
Involvement?
Yeah. A two-way street, whatever it is, involvement. We're all human beings walking the world path together, so involvement and sharing.
Yeah, I like that you use the term a two-way street. I think that that's something that we all talk about. Anybody else want to chime in? Come on, we got an hour and a half. You know, obviously you're here because you believe in diversity in our community, so please, come on and give us your thoughts, okay.
I promised myself I wasn't going to talk, but I can't. I was a union treasurer, and I always fought for equality for everyone. I was married to a military guy and had wonderful ethnic friends on both sides till I moved to the city here and had some real negative experiences with some of the minority groups. And now I want to find a way to put that behind me so I can go back to the way I used to feel, because it was a one-sided street when I tried to talk to them. They didn't want to listen. It was their way or no way, and so it created a negative feeling, and I know I'm not the only one in the city that's had that happen to them. So I think diversity is being able to overcome the differences and find a peaceful way to get along. That's all we want to do is get along.
You know, you can jump in here at any time too, but I like the thing about it's a two-way street, because that is correct, is that people who are coming to our community, we as a community need to reach out and understand them, what their culture is, what their ideas, what their thoughts are. But these groups these people that are now coming to our town, our community, it's, as you said, it's a two-way street. They also need to reach out to us, us meaning the community of Oshkosh that's here, understand that, and by both of us understanding things, we may not see eye to eye on everything, but it's that understanding that will allow us to build that bridge, to build trust.
So you made my segue for me. I was gonna talk about the Oshkosh is a community that has a river that runs right through the middle of it here. So instead of standing on the shore and yelling across at each other and getting things lost in the wind, maybe there was a bridge there at one point that was burned, and now it's our responsibility to build those bridges so that we can stand out in the middle of the river and talk to each other and facilitate that communication instead of just yelling, finding new ways to build bridges and creative ways to engage the other side of the river, whatever that may be, whatever group we're not a part of, or a group that we don't identify with. One of the things that I think about when it comes to diversity is identity. I just recently had a very large identity change. I became a father. So, as my identity changes as an individual, I'm a member of different groups based on that. And when it comes to diversity, to me, it's about finding those identities and understanding where I'm coming from and what I have in common with other people and what is different. Because what is different makes me unique, and that's something to be celebrated, but it doesn't mean I'm any less a part of the human race. So, for me, it's about individual identity and connection to the group. So there's my 2 cents worth.
All right. Anybody else got some thoughts?
Thanks. My name is Paul Van Auken, and I don't have too much to add about what diversity is. I think that's been pretty well covered. I would say appreciation of differences and trying to work towards understanding and celebrating those differences. But the thing I would stress is, as we try to understand, then we're trying to dig deeper and understand why we have certain social and cultural differences, which makes the two-way street thing a little bit more complicated than just saying it's a two-way street. Because part of what we have in American society is major differences between social groups and their outcomes in life, opportunities that are afforded to certain groups more easily than others or more readily than others. So yes, it's a two-way street, but we have to try to understand why certain groups may not act like they want to talk to people from the majority group or something, because power is such an important part of the equation. So if you're part of a group that's historically marginalized, disenfranchised, lacking power, there might be all kinds of things that appear to be the case that have to do a lot more with the lack of power and being marginalized and oppressed, that if we really want to make a difference in getting towards celebration and true inclusion and integration, we have to try to understand.
So there's an entire power dynamic here that is important to understand as well, because there is historical groups that have had the power, those that haven't, and finding a way to bridge that power gap with opportunity. Is that a fair assessment of what I was trying to listen to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Starting with just trying to understand those differences, go from there.
My name is Jody Harrell, and I think one of the things that we have to do is listen to each other's story. No matter what package we come in, we have a human story, and those journeys that we have are where we find our common ground. And when we can find opportunities to share those stories that we learn from each other, and we learn about the beauty that all the different cultures and all the different social groups that we have a gift to give. And so we have to create things in our community, places that we can share those stories, that we can come together, and that it is a safe place for each person to come and tell that story and be part of the process of making change and listening to each other. How do we change? How do we make it more safe for all people to be able to communicate that story?
So it starts with finding a way to communicate to each other in a way that we can address legacy issues of different, whether it be socioeconomic or opportunity gaps, so that we can understand where those gaps are and we can find a way as a community to address those.
You know, and I think one of the other things that we need to begin addressing are stereotypes. You know, people, we stereotype others without even meeting someone. And we see it on our current national discussion that we're having, where everyone is in a particular group is lumped in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's either yay or nay. You're either a part of us or against us. And it's these breaking down these stereotypes. And some of it kind of addresses some of the things that Paul said, is yes, there are these, you know, these disenfranchised groups, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of stereotyping that's being done, is that this group looks at this group and says, no, it's bad people. There's some bad people in this group, there's some bad people in this group. That's the minority of them. The majority of them, once you get to know them, are really great people. One of the successes I think that Oshkosh has had is related to diversity is the Ahmadi Muslim community when they came into the city. They reached out to the community and said, look, we want to locate here, we want to have a mosque here, and we've seen all the stories about when people had, you know, is some of the things that we're seeing now when a mosque wants to be located in a community. This group came in, reached out to the city, and I don't mean the city as in city of Oshkosh government, I mean the city as a whole. They reached out, said, here's who we are, learn who we are. And they've become a very vital part of our community. So, yes, there are the disenfranchised groups, there's the historical things, there's these stereotypes that we also need to begin addressing. And to not see someone, you know, don't just look at somebody and make your decision. Talk to that person. And then make your decision. And even then, too, we got to start asking questions. Gee, Kyle, why is it that you think that? And Kyle says, well, here's why. And I say, well, you know, I don't agree with that, but here's where I'm coming from. And we have a discussion, as I said, talking to each other, not at each other, learning about each other and understanding each other. So that's where I think those are some of the things we need to do. Anybody else have some thoughts and ideas? Okay, you already spoke, so we're going to go over. Everybody gets one.
Okay, hi. I'm new to Oshkosh. I've been here now for about a year and 2 months. I have found no problem in fitting in. I have to be honest about that. And there's a point here that really needs to be made. When you come to a city, you're not coming to a city to say, you fit in with me. We should all, when we come to a city, we don't know the reason why many people come to a city. But when you come to a city, you fit in. And you try to fit in with the community or everyday people that you see. That I have never had a problem with since I've been here. I can walk the street, I can ride my bike, ride the bus, or whatever. I have met some very, very friendly people. Now, if you're coming into a city and you're bringing in your own issues, and then you're demanding this city to fit in with you, that's not going to work. It never works. Believe me. And I know that from a lot of experiences that I have had working with a lot of groups, a lot of community things and everything else. It doesn't work. A person comes into a city, you fit in. You find out how you fit in. You volunteer. You do certain things. You do all of that. You have some people coming to a city, which I have asked some kids, why are you here? They said, well, I'm here because the city that I came from was a lot of problems and so, but now here I have the opportunity to get my GED free at so. I can go to SEED. I can do this. I can straighten out my life. Now, the city and people have to understand there's a lot of issues going on. A lot of cities do not want drugs or this and that. Well, they have to do what they've got to do. You know, and that's something that has to be understood. You are right about the stereotype. We should not stereotype. Okay, but people do that. But I believe that this city, Oshkosh, you guys have, from what I see coming from a large city, you don't have the main issues of where people will not do it. I think that if people come together all as one, as the ladies have said, and it seems like here today everyone is saying that, just come together as one, put away the stereotypes, and sit down at the table and really talk. You can't talk if you're coming in an organization saying, this is my organization, I want you to do this, and you are this, and you are that. It's not going to help. It doesn't help anything. I mean, I can talk all night about this, but anyway, a lot of points have been brought in. I really appreciate this meeting and knowing that people are doing this to, you know, really bring the community together. But personally, I don't see any problems here where it cannot be done.
If I may ask, what brought you to Oshkosh?
My son. And a young lady that he met. I'm from really Chicago, ex-teacher, community organizer, name and all, work police, the whole daggone bit, so I know what's happening. And we won't go into all of that. That'll be a 6-page resume. But I will say this, is that what I see with a small community like this, you don't really have the major problems that what you see in major cities. I see that your largest minority group are Asians, am I correct? Okay. I see that you have a minority group of blacks and a minority group of Hispanics, am I correct? Yeah, okay. So I'm seeing exactly what is, you know, that I see here. I noticed, and I told Jody I wasn't going to open my mouth when I got here, but anyway, and she told me she wasn't going to open hers, but anyway. And I noticed that people can work together. I have noticed from the young black kids that are coming here that they have their reasons why they're coming here. Some are running away from this and running away from that. Yes, some of them have experienced the stereotype thing. You know, some of them have. But as I have told some of them, you just overlook that. You become a viable citizen and do what you've got to do. And then all of that will be all right and pull your pants up. Okay?
Do you mean that in the literal or the figurative?
I'm not going to go there with that one. Okay, but it's a lot, but it's true. Here you are.
We've got to get,
This is the information from the school district for their enrollment data.
Okay.
So if we wanted to share that.
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to do at the end of this is that if we could get everybody to maybe sign in or whatever, and so we can begin to reach out to people. And I think, Kyle, I think that we found somebody that can maybe help us out as we move forward with this. I think you just voluntold yourself. So, okay.
Yes, Stan Mack, Superintendent of Schools. As I saw the notice of this meeting in the paper, I thought it was important that I'm not sure how much data and how much census data the city has, but I know what we collect and in each fall as we look at enrollment, and you probably have looked at the statistics here. Our minority enrollment is in the, I've looked at over the last 4 or 5 years, we've gone from right around 17% total minority enrollment to right about 20%. And with frankly, Asian being our largest minority population, and Hispanic, Latino being second, and interesting enough, the Black or African American population, this is all self-identified. We don't identify individuals identify themselves in that fashion, and African American being really third in the numbers, but actually fourth. There's a larger number, and that's mixed race, which is larger from the standpoint. These definitions come from the U.S. Office of Civil Rights and Department of Education, so we don't classify according to that. I find it particularly ironic that that a city named after a Native American chief has the smallest number of Native Americans in it at 7 students in our population, and that's extremely small. But it is an issue. For me, the issue that we deal with is less on race and more on the issue of achievement related to poverty. Poverty is a far bigger variable than it is by race. I can tell you that our overall academic achievement compared to white population is higher in the Asian population. So we can't look at race as being an issue of academic outcomes. But I thought, as I saw this meeting posted, that it might be helpful to at least have some statistics, because I don't think at this point, midway through a decade, Oshkosh necessarily has up-to-date counts from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Thank you, Steve. Do you have many reports of difficulties between cultures and races in the schools?
Occasionally, yes. In fact, I'm meeting with somebody on Friday on issues of racial epithets that surface. Our principals handle those immediately in dealing with the issues, but there's some back and forth with children, but it is not extreme, and certainly we have policies to respond to it, but it's pretty common across the district that there is some racial going both ways, but certainly with our minority students being at times verbally identified in that way.
I think you wanted to speak again? Okay.
To round things up, I see this as an opportunity to come together and use this as a springboard or a launching pad into developing better relationships, and an opportunity for Oshkosh as a city to raise its consciousness, raise the interaction. And I see 3 components to the process. One would be awareness, involvement, becoming involved, and actual interaction. So those are the 3-pronged things that I see: awareness, involvement, interaction. Amen.
All right, no, those are very good points. Anyone else want to contribute to the discussion? Okay.
My name is Steve Soom. I just want to mention that we did have 22 years of a race unity social here in Oshkosh that was very successful. We had, at that time, identified 34 languages spoken in Oshkosh. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I was truly amazed when I found that out. With each of these languages comes a different culture. And there's research, for example, that says that in some culture, time is handled much differently than it is in our culture. In fact, they refer to us as the TikTok. We're obsessed with the TikTok. We look at the watch all the time. In some cultures, time on a watch is irrelevant. They work on event time. And to tell you that I've experienced this is right here in Oshkosh, we invited someone that we had met at our Race Unity Social to our home, and it was for a Thanksgiving dinner at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We had asked what time would be convenient for them, and they said 2 would be fine. So my wife had everything ready for 2 o'clock, and 2 o'clock came and went, and no one there. And 2:30, no one there. And my wife was concerned about the meal. What's happening here? So we got on the phone trying to contact them. We could not contact them. And at 4 o'clock, they came. And they came with guests that came to their house. And my wife was all prepared to sit down because here the meal was partially burnt and what have you. And they wanted to sit and talk. That was the important thing. I think we have to realize that the cultural differences make tremendous differences in our interaction with people. I worked in the school district, and I was asked to talk to the Hmong elders right after the first refugees came to town. And I took an interpreter with me. And as I started talking, the interpreter was silent. And I said, what's the problem? She said, you wouldn't understand. I said, I want to understand. I want their children to succeed in our schools. She said, we don't have a word for school. My whole presentation was left. I had overheads of the report card. I had copies of report card to hand out. I was going to talk about homework and grading and all of these other things, and I thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to communicate with these people? And luckily, I had an overhead of Howard Gardner's Multiple Intelligences. He's traveled all over the world, and he says intelligence is defined by the culture you're born into. And I went through the 7 intelligences and described each one of them. And I said, for your children to succeed in our schools, you have to know 2 of these 7 intelligences: logical, mathematical, and verbal linguistic. That's what our schools are built on. And I was blown away when I asked them, what would be the intelligence if I went to your homeland? They all had their hand up. Interpersonal relationships, clan-oriented society, communication amongst people. Number 2 was intrapersonal. So if I'm comfortable with what's happening, I go along with it. But here we are, people coming into our culture. If I went to their culture and tried to fit in with their system, I would be struggling, trying to understand all of these nuances that go on between community members. And when we talk about diversity, remember, we are the diverse people to them. So it really is a two-way street. It's not, how can we help them to change and become like us? No. What can I do to better help them to acclimate to our community and our society? And we've had some exciting experiences. We had as many as 500 people come to our Race Unity Social here in Oshkosh. I had a man at the end of one of the socials come and he said, "Have you been involved in this?" I said, "Oh yes, we've been doing this for a number of years." He said, "I have to honestly thank you for this." He said, "I came to pick my daughter up from the university, and she said, 'Let's stop at the social. I've heard about this.' And he said, we came, and he said, to be perfectly honest with you, this is the first time I have talked to a black person and shook hands with them. This is the first time I've eaten Chinese food." And when I talk further with him, he comes from a farm in northern Wisconsin. Never had any contact with people from other cultures. So I think we have to realize that it isn't just the person making adjustments, it's the cultural values they're bringing with them that are extremely important. And I think we have to learn to understand that. And one of the ways of doing it is talking to one another.
Again, the topic of communication comes up again. You got something right away?
Yeah. Ron Keel. Just in a more general, looking at a lot of the people I know or observe, a lot of people just struggle with communication themselves in their everyday life, in their families. A lot of the people that I talk about Muslim society and the cultures, they're afraid to engage, I think. They don't know how. They don't know how to speak even those languages of communication interpersonal. I think it's really difficult. They make judgments. They make stereotypes. I talked to a gentleman at the Interfaith Harmony meeting at St. Mark's in Neenah here last week or 2 weeks ago, and a black gentleman and a Muslim. And he said, actually, he doesn't have any hassles. But he was in McDonald's one day, waiting in line, and he heard these two gentlemen behind him, older folks, making very derogatory comments about Muslims. He's a younger guy and well-spoken, and he talked to them about it, but they did not want to engage him in that. They shut him down. I think a lot of people in any society don't know how to, even if they're together. I mean, it takes a while for most people to break down and say, "Hey, how are you? This is about me. Let's get going. Let's talk." I can do that. But I bet 70% they really need help in doing that. My wife says, "Well, you can talk to anybody." But when you observe a lot of people, we all go to who we know. And so how do we get interaction? We can all do that pretty well, probably here tonight. A lot of us can, but when you look at the larger society, how do we give them the opportunity, the permission, how to break down the fear, how to just start talking? A lot of men and women in their own marriages can't talk with each other. And I don't want to get off on it, but I mean, it's really a big issue of, what do I say? What would I do? I don't know how to start those conversations. They don't talk about the Packers. They don't talk about fishing. They don't talk about deer hunting. How do we really start talking about it, understanding each other? So I think it's a bigger issue for a lot of people of how do we even give them the ability, permission, and opportunity to interact. I agree. Once you start sitting down, I was at that, I think it's Esther that has the theory or the philosophy, one-on-one. If you want to get to know somebody, ask them out for coffee or for breakfast and just sit down. Somebody you don't know or somebody that's different than you. But I don't know how many people will do that. So anyway, I guess, how do we engage the larger population in the long run to help break down those walls?
Boy, that's a great comment, and I know you had to talk to 4 pet kids over your career. I don't know how many, I don't know if we all listened, but, you know. But no, one of the, that's an interesting comment, because several years ago I read something where it talked about the digital age and computers and everything. And it kind of broke down the World Wide Web. And when it first came out, it was, gosh, we were going to have all of this information out there. We were going to be able to go and just find anything out. But you know what? This study found that we're not taking advantage of that. What most of us do is take advantage of the information out there that validates our points. it gets to your point that I know what I know what I believe, this is it, and this is where I'm going to go. I always often found it kind of funny that the Oshkosh cable system had Fox on channel 45 and MSNBC on channel 46. And those that watched 45 would never even turn the dial up to 46. Those that watched 46 never turned the dial down to 45. What's a dial? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I actually remember black and white. But the thing is that we find it difficult to talk to someone because we have it so ingrained that we just continually reinforce the beliefs that we have. And we don't really want to be challenged by another one that may prove me wrong, or say, wow, we talk about the stereotype. Very easy to, and that's kind of what we're looking at, is there's the stereotype, oh, well, they're not like us. They don't have the same, at the end of the day, most of us have the same needs, wants, and everything else. We want a roof over our head, we want food in our stomach, we want to be wanted, we want to care about someone, we want to love someone. At the end of the day, that's what it really comes down to. That's how you have the conversation. It's just another human being. My brother's a physician, and one of the things he often says is, you know what? When you open them up, blood's still red, all the organs are in the same place, and they all look the same. Maybe we need to look inside the person rather than what's outside the person. So, to your point, it's simply asking a question. Hey, how you doing today? It's just as simple as that. As you said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Just reach out to that person, ask them something. It's about asking who they are instead of preconceiving what they are.
I went to the mosque meeting where they had food and everything. I have never had food prepared by Muslims, and I wanted to learn about them. And to show how much they're reaching out, I held out my hand, because that's our habit, to shake hands. I did not know that you do not offer your hand to a young man, and they have the discretion to either take your hand or not. And I didn't know that either, but he was so kind, he took my hand and shook it. And then I found out later, oh, I thought I won't do that again, but he was that willing to put himself out to meet and make us feel comfortable. So I thought they're really trying over there, and it's really admirable. And if you get a chance to go over there just for the food, it's worth it.
Okay, my name is B. Tao. I'm a little emotional, okay, about this topic. I have been in Oshkosh more than 30 years, and I still feel like I'm not belong here because I'm minority. After my wife told me about this topic, we are very excited and emotional too. Yeah, like the gentleman say, we are in the U.S., but culture, language, it's very difficult for us. After 30 years in Oshkosh, I still feel like I'm not belong in the U.S. So this topic, I feel so good about that you're going to create something for minority, representing minority. I feel better as a citizen of the U.S. too. So if you put yourself in our shoe, it will be very difficult too.
Anything else?
Yes.
Okay. Take your time.
So our kids are born in the U.S., so we would like to help. We would like them to have a life that they can feel safe and belong in the U.S. too. So if you have someone representing minority in Oshkosh, I think we have connection with the city. We be able to get connection better than nothing.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to offer? All right. No, don't worry about this. This is a conversation. So it's not limited to only one chance.
Just wanted to say a couple things in response to things I've already heard. I think it's a great sign that B is here to, say things that are tough to say, and I think it's important to hear all kinds of stories. I echo what was heard before, and I know that there are plenty of people in Oshkosh who feel that they don't belong for different reasons, and I think it's hopeful that there's a meeting like this where you're reaching out, and that there's this possibility for the position that B was referring to being created. I think it's long overdue, but I think I think there are a lot of things that make me feel more hopeful than I have in previous years. I haven't been here super long. I think this is my 9th year in Oshkosh, but I know in Oshkosh we've got a number of historical and kind of structural factors that really need to be considered, and that really on a broader scale, why do we have stereotypes and racism, those sort of misunderstandings like that? Why do they persist throughout society? It's because of separation. We live very segregated lives throughout the country. We live separately, and that allows the stereotypes come in for, we need something to grasp onto because we don't actually have any experience with these types of people, so stereotypes make it easy to make a judgment. And so all these points that have been made about people needing to interact and communicate and talk, I wholeheartedly second them. And I think the other thing is, so we've had history of racial exclusion in this whole Fox Valley. I'm a sociologist, and this is something that sociologists have studied, and I have read quite a bit about. I didn't grow up here, but I've looked at the history of the place, and I think it's important for us to consider that, not to get bogged down by it, but to know what the context is. And also something that has a lot of positives to it, but is also something to consider, which is that we're, according to 2010 census, we're the 10th most homegrown city in the country. So some people can come here and have a good experience of fitting right in. I mean, I certainly did, but I didn't have a lot of barriers to my fitting in. And other people, whatever the case might be, professional experience or personality fit in well, but others don't. And some of those things have, those factors play into that when so many people that live here grew up here, there can be a sense of exclusion built in there, whether people realize it or are trying to do it or not. And so in the past, I've heard people in power, in Oshkosh say things like, it sounds like it's well-intended, we're open to everyone, but, these people don't seem to step up. They don't come to meetings. They don't apply to be on committees or be on city council. Well, that's the kind of thing that people in power tend to be white males that would say that sort of thing all across the country. And it seems like we're starting to get over that hump and say, you're having a meeting like this because you want to reach out and hear from people. This is a good first step in creating some type of position that looks at this as a very serious, important issue that the city wants to commit to making sure that people's voices are heard and that these types of things are considered and that people are organized and that sort of thing, I think, is really important. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
I know we've been focusing a lot on diversity as this theoretical framework. In a lot of diversity, the conversation about diversity comes down to race and ethnicity. But when I was talking about before with identity, there are other forms of identity. And Stan, you touched on one of them being poverty. And so what I would like to shift the discussion slightly into a discussion of our community as a whole. And what challenges do we face as a community to diversity? Because we've talked about other people's experience. In your conversation about inside versus outside, this mentality of a community, it was somebody was talking to me who's grown up here in Oshkosh. I was born and raised in Oshkosh. And they were talking about, yeah, you know what? Oshkosh is 65,000 plus people, but it could just as easily be a town of 6,000, where we've all grown up together, we all know everybody, because that's the mentality that they felt when they went to another community that was similar to Oshkosh. So one of the challenges that I would see in things that we can have a conversation about are the mentality around being from Oshkosh or being a transplant to Oshkosh. Some of my colleagues have experienced this as well in their professional lives, being from one community or another. And the other one that I think is the biggest driver of challenges in any community is socioeconomic challenges. How do you get people who don't have access to the same level of technology, the same level of basic needs? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't move up that if you haven't met the basic needs. So those that are homeless in a community, those that don't have food on their table, those that don't have access to clean water. So in a community like ours, we may have less of an issue with access to clean water on a daily basis. But what challenges do you see in our community in terms of building these bridges? Where are the areas of communication that we really need to focus on as a community? So shifting from the theoretical side of it to the practical side. If we're going to be looking at having a conversation, what are the things that we need to step out of our comfort zone on and be willing to engage someone else on?
And the room fell down.
Because this is down somewhat to personal experience, but it's also down to demographics. And if we're going to have a serious conversation, I'll be the first one to step out of my comfort zone, and that's where it starts, is addressing challenges.
You know, I mean, we've got the Oshkosh Community Community Foundation doing their Tackling Wicked Problems. That's addressing this. I know that Stan, this is something, you know, poverty, the socioeconomic things, this is something, as you indicated, that's more, I don't mean more important, but that is the issue that you, yeah, it's true, it crosses all lines, you know, and the interesting thing is the fact that it does cross all lines, you know, it just goes to show that we're all in this together. And so maybe this is the place we start, is by addressing that and saying that it goes across all ethnic and those groups. So
in the fall, when we passed out to our high school students the first ever universal distribution of Chromebooks, a package that for all students to use for their schoolwork, our staff that were there at the table as they passed out and checked out these devices, that for a ninth grader, it's theirs for all 4 years of high school. They check it back in at the end of the year. We take care of making sure everything's in order and continued on. But the tears in the eyes of children, high school children, that were there saying, "Oh, thank you. I didn't think this would ever be in my life." That great equalizer for me was worth every pain and suffering we went through to get to that stage. And next year, with the continuation of that with our middle schoolers, the ability to find equalization with opportunity through devices for equipment, to have equal access so that learning opportunities can be there. But for families where children have grown up and there are 9th and 10th graders, and they had no idea that there was the possibility for them to have an equal level playing field for learning by handing a device which they cherish and take care of. I mean, our limited damage rate with 3,000 devices is just phenomenally low. We expected it to be so because that's the key to learning, and it's a great equalizer. Finding more and more ways to cross both racial and poverty lines is a critical issue in any school system, and it certainly is in ours, with numbers in the 44% poverty, 44 to 46% poverty in the school district makes tremendous need. It's twice our poverty rate is twice that of any racial minority issues, but of those, we have a major crossing of lines in all of those areas. So tackling the issue both in sensitivity and raising our sophistication with handling racial issues is number one, but it is also the sensitivity to the issue that those who are disadvantaged are not just in racial groups, but poverty is a factor that I see every day as being the biggest impediment to learn, because the social experiences, the experiences that middle class and upper class children have because of their ability of their parents to expose them to things, changes the whole 4-year-old vocabulary index. When children come to us with only several hundred words in their vocabulary, as opposed to the middle class and upper class child that has 8,000 to 10,000 words in the vocabulary, that 4K teacher, 4-year-old teacher, or that kindergarten teacher has a achievement gap from day one that they're dealing with, and it's usually driven by poverty, not just by race.
If it's really quick, can I say one more thing, because I have to go? Thanks, Tom.
No problem.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having the meeting, and I promise to be really quick. I think the one thing that I would encourage the group to think about is, poverty is a huge producer of exclusion, and there are all kinds of other different factors that cause people to be excluded, whether it's ability, if people are disabled in different ways, or maybe it's age. It could be all kinds of different things, not just race and ethnicity, although I think that's really important. So as we're doing this and trying to gather as much information about what would be the best action steps, I would encourage you all to think, all of us to think about creative ways to reach out to people to gather that information. That's kind of what I was getting at before. I felt like it was sort of up to people to come to us with their, we don't know if they don't come. Well, we need to reach out and be really strategic and creative about how we go out and find people that maybe do want to be heard, maybe have really good ideas, maybe have a lot to offer, but they're on the margins and they can't make it to meetings, or they're for various reasons, the work schedules or whatever the case might be, don't feel welcomed. I mean, all kinds of reasons. So where do people meet? Where can we go find people? How can we offer all kinds of different opportunities? Thanks a lot.
Well, I know that that's something that I do. I know Kyle does, Mark does this, Mayor Cummings, Ms. Allison Osby. We go out, we want people to get involved, and people come up and talk to us, and what's really interesting, sorry, Steve, I apologize. I was looking at that side of the room. But, Paul, you raise a good point. But there's many times, and I know all of us that sit on council will have heard this before, where we go, that's a really great idea. Come on, join us. So, I can't go and drag them in, but if you want to change, you got to get involved. And that's what we need to do. We'll facilitate this, but we can't drag people kicking and screaming into getting involved. And I agree, it's outreach. And we'll reach out, and we're also asking people to reach out to us as well. So did you want to say something? Oh, just a little short? Okay. Wait, we're talking about diverse, so we can't talk about little short things.
I'm talking about people with poverty issues. The food pantry, and there are other places in town where people are taking people in and providing housing for them, and that's a great place for people to have a conversation with people. If you have food in your garden and it's extra, you can take it to the food pantry, and I'll tell you how many smiles you get when you come in with fresh produce that they can have. those things, and you have a conversation. There isn't a time, we raised 800 pounds of things from a community garden. People from our church had a community garden, had 800 pounds of food that we brought in over the summer, and I will never forget the smiles that people have as I dump those vegetables in, as we bring them in, the smiles and the communication and the sharing and the thing that go on with that. There are people on the street in shelters who are human beings with a story, and we all can reach out and go to those places and listen. And that's how we help. We're making bags, hygiene bags, with things that will say, "You matter." And people at our church, the 4-H is helping, the quilter group is making the bags, and we're going to give these to people who are homeless. We have ideas and thoughts about that, and a bedroll, so that they have something that says, number one, you matter, and number two, that we can have a conversation when we hand those out, when we share those, when the people that give. And so there's a lot of people in town that are doing those kinds of things. And if we can include the conversations at the same time, if we can build in those opportunities, you know, the food pantries are doing a lot of that kind of conversation. Empty Bowls is another opportunity where the community comes together and gives money from an event where everybody comes together, and that goes directly to the food pantries. But it's also a conversation where those people can come and be part of it. So if we can wrap those things, we can have from the heart kind of conversation.
All right, and we'll go over here.
Okay, my name is Kia, and I'm B's wife. I just want to touch on, I like your idea of meeting people at their level. Coming here can be very intimidating, and it could be very hard. Even if I can make it, I could be very intimidated. I mean, I'm looking at, you know, all of you guys with titles to your name, not knowing who you are. That could be intimidating to have somebody come and step inside City Hall and find a way up here to find out what the meeting is all about. And so I like your idea of meeting people at their level, at the food pantry, at the Hmong New Year, or at their picnic, the Race Unity picnic. Having that conversation at a place where they're comfortable and they have friends that are at the same level as them would be open up for discussion.
I see that Ben left, so the average age of the room went up. That's a problem. That's a big problem. Look at everybody in the room. Kyle, you're a little younger. But, you know, just think about all the people who are here, who are the young people. We worry a lot. Let's look at this from maybe an economic, more an economic term. We are concerned in the state, in the city, about where are young people going. We come here, we go to school, we got to get out of this damn place. I mean, I don't want to go work at the factory. I want to have a life. So what do people look for? What do young people look for? Young people look for, and look at where they go. They go for places that have great diversity. Not only ethnic diversity, but in all shapes and forms. You'll find sexual orientation is an issue that we haven't addressed here tonight, but that's also an issue. There's all kinds of issues. If we want to keep the young people here, if we want young people to stay in this community and make it grow, we have 66,000 people. We're 25 old people sitting here tonight. We have 66,000 people. We want to keep the smart, young, bright people here. We better think about getting more and more diverse, and better think about ways to keep them here and make them want to stay here. Whether it's something like transportation or more outlets for for various things. The university tries. The university tries very hard, but that's in their own world. The city might learn something from the university. Maybe that's something we can jump onto and take from them. But think about for your own economic benefit. Let's try to make this a better place in that way.
You know, you talk about diversity, and a gentleman who just walked in, one of the things we talk about, yeah, we want to make our community more diverse, socially, ethnically, also related to the sexual issues of it. Economic diversity is something that we also have to have. We need a vibrant economy in our community. That will keep those students involved and want to stay here. Jason, I'm not throwing you under the bus, but boy, what timing we're talking about this. But, so, you know, and let's see what time is it, we're about 7 o'clock, but the funny thing is as we've been talking about this, and one thing that that's kind of coalescing in my mind here is that diversity is such a broad topic. It can be ethnic diversity, it can be age diversity, it can be socioeconomic diversity, it can be everything. The thing is this something that the city, and when I mean this, I mean the city of Oshkosh, this building here, is responsible for, or is it something our community is responsible for? I think it's a community-based issue. And yes, the city can play a part of it. Stan, I know the OASD is being a part of it. It's the university. It's our businesses in our community. It's the community foundation. We all have a stake in this. And so I think that's the biggest point to make, is to take away from all of this tonight, is that it's not just the city of Oshkosh government, it is the city of Oshkosh, the citizens in it that are going to get this done. So, but points well taken. Yeah, Ron?
Quick comment. Is it Lee? B, I'm sorry. I mean, he gave us an opening already. I think he doesn't feel part of this city or the U.S. maybe, and I'm sure he represents others. So we leave here, and he'll be rattling in my head, and I don't know his name and number, but I don't think we can just leave that lay. That's an opportunity right there. The sociologist left, Paul, but I read a sociologist once who said his greatest research in knowing what was going on in the community is the bars, the bowling alleys, where the common people talk and they talk. And you get on their turf, they'll tell you what they feel. And I don't know if that's the city's job either, but I agree that one other point, to come here, you know, all the name tags, the DS, power brokers, television, not too many people are going to risk saying much of any kind of, you know, you got to be pretty fired up and pretty confident. So I don't know how you do this, but maybe we have to unite. I don't know how we all unite. A lot of people are doing things, but how do we unite our efforts?
Yeah.
One of the things that has come up numerous times throughout, whether it sits in a classroom or you get a study done, one of the things that keeps coming up is the concept of community and civic engagement. I have a master's degree in political science. One of the main things we talk about is how are people building community? Is it at the bowling alley? Is it in their schools? One of the first places that a lot of people get involved with taking action on something is a parent-teacher organization. One of the studies that the city conducted, one of the most valuable resources that was noted in that study, I believe this was in the Prager study, was volunteerism in our community. That people are involved in organizations. If we can get all those organizations, we did it here in City Hall with our strategic plan, getting people out of silos. You've got this department over here working on this project, and this department over here working on that project. Maybe it's time to apply that same sort of strategic thinking to a community. and pool our resources. Yes, you have the food pantry working on one aspect of poverty, but maybe working with faith communities, maybe working with other organizations through government or schools, or finding community-based partnerships is the key to long-term success. If we're going to address a community issue, having partners in the discussion is important, and that starts with people. And I have no problem standing in front of a group of people with a microphone. I've done it for a long time. I judged competitive speech, but I understand that this thing right here is intimidating. And I have a pretty good command of the English language. When you have a language barrier, maybe a big room like this isn't the best situation. So my responsibility as an elected official is to knock on people's doors, talk to them in their place. Too bad. You are here as a citizen, but because this conversation is being recorded.
Well, and that's my point. I'm here as a citizen, but also as a city council member, and something that I think that needs to be transparent to both those that are in the room as well as those that are watching is that was a discussion that we had, is do we have this televised or do we not? And as part of government, and those that are from the school district and from the county that are representative, they would understand. We're darned if we do, darned if we don't. If we don't have it televised, then we're hiding something and not wanting to be transparent. If we have it televised, we're being transparent, but then we also run the risk of alienating those that aren't comfortable coming. So please understand, we really did debate what the proper forum is and understand why, you know, when you are in a government, you are elected official, you have to err on the side of caution and transparency. So I want to make sure that we address that this evening as well.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and that's why Kyle and I were not doing this from the dais tonight, because that is an intimidating bench, so to speak. You know, it almost looks like, I mean, it's, well, there's 7 of us. Well, there's 9 Supreme Court, yeah. So, I mean, you know, you could make the argument.
There's only 8 right now.
Positions, not necessarily. But so that's why we're doing this. But yeah, I agree. It's incumbent upon the 7 of us who sit there to go out and get active in the community. At the same time, it's incumbent upon the community to get active and come to us. Send us an email, call us. We're more than happy to talk. If any of you have an event coming up, let us know about that. Because we, you know, if we can fit it into our schedules, I'm sure we'd be looking to get there. Yes, you raise your hand.
I just want to challenge all of you guys as leaders in the community to go out, and I know you have talked about reaching out to other people, other communities, but I challenge you guys to go out to business that are minorities, that serve minorities, to restaurants. And even if you don't like the food or if you don't know what they're selling, go out, check it out, talk to them, talk to the customers. That way you are out there, they know who you are, and they are more comfortable if they see you out on the street. You may not know them, but they will know who you are by being out and being visible for whether it's the different ethnicity or is it the social economic level. They will know who you are, and by knowing your name and your face, they will feel more comfortable.
Okay.
And what happens at the farmer's market on Main Street when you have hundreds of people walking the street in different booths where you have an opportunity to interact with people?
Well, I know the mayor and I, wait, this might not be the right thing to say, but we walked the streets this summer. No, but we did, is because that's a great opportunity to get out and meet the community. And we do take advantage of that. And the mayor reorganized the community breakfast this year and made it more community-centric as opposed to EAA-centric. So yeah, your point well taken, and we do try and get out as much as we can. But again, like I said, if there's something that is we're on, you know, we've got our emails, all of us have our phone numbers published. If there's something, we'd be more than, and like I said, invite us. If we can make it into our schedules, we'd be more than happy to come and visit this. And that's part of the job that's related to this, you know. So, well, we're at 7, okay. Kyle, do you want to throw anything in? Okay.
Nothing much to say, but when I first moved here, the first thing I did was that I learned the history of this city, because I thought that was the most important thing to know. When you know the history of a city, you can sort of deal with a lot of things. If you being, okay, black, you know, the first thing I wanted to know was, did they once at one time had a black community? They did. You know, so knowing the history is very, very important. Know the history of Oshkosh. What is the history? Now, another thing that I want to mention, which is a very delicate subject when you talk about getting into the community, is people that are recovering drug addicts, alcoholics. They are here. And sometimes while they are recovering, there's no help for them. And sometimes there is help. But then after the recovery, what does the community do for them? To make them feel viable and like they belong. And some of them are young people, and some are older people. And they're still trying to find their way. If we lose them, then we lose part of the community too. And then they're moving out to other places where they feel that they can be helped. So that's something that we need to think about.
You got anything? All right. Does anybody else have anything to throw in? All right, Stan.
I just was so impressed when I saw the notice of this meeting. I tend to be a public body geek. I watch the county commission. I watch the city council meeting in reruns, and sometimes I even watch twice to catch. But when you're doing these things, I'm nearing 4 years in the community, and I can tell you that I'm really admire city government and but the leadership, you as a council and Mark provide, and Mayor Cummings and predecessors have provided just outstanding. But taking on this effort is very brave on your part, and I think it's an issue that is so much underspoken, and so much needs to be spoken. But you're right, this is not city government's role. It is the greater community. It's the religious community. We have nobody here in the religious community here tonight. That's you know, the greatest segregation occurs on Sunday mornings or Saturdays or Fridays, depending upon the faith. That's the greatest segregation there is in the world, and there's nobody here. And that's not city government's job. It is our job in city and school district and county government to respond to it, but leading it is the greater community. And moral and ethical behavior doesn't come from any other place, hopefully, but by religious community, and I'm disappointed to not see religious community here.
Well, one more time. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay. I can tell you personally, this is not one of these things where, you know, we see a lot of people, you know, politicians do this. You know, there's politicians and then there's statesmen. I don't want to be a politician. Politicians are the ones that'll tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. They're going to tell you whatever is expedient. I can tell you, me personally, and I think I can speak for you, and you, the other 4 counselors that are here tonight, and I'm sure Ben and Caroline agree with me. This is not an issue that we're just going to have this one meeting and it's done. This is something that we're all going to continue to focus on. I know, as I said, I will be out and meet as many people as I can and make as many different things as I can. Understood that, you know, we all have a job as well as all the other things that we do and to try and make our community better. But we'll be out there. This is not something that we are just going to say we held this meeting and problem solved. You know, wipe our hands and we're done with it. But, you know, the one thing I would ask is that each of you, over the next few days, when you go and you talk to your friends, and when you see things, and when you talk, like I said, when you talk to your friends, tell them about this conversation. Tell them what we discussed tonight. Tell them what the idea is, because it comes down to that community. This is a community issue. Stan said it's not just the city, it's the community that we have to do. And so in doing that, let's reach out to our fellow human beings and all get in this together, and because that's the only way we're going to become more diverse. That's the only way where we're going to solve the problem. I don't like looking at things as problems. I look at them as opportunities for solutions. So we've got an opportunity here to provide a solution for Oshkosh that's going to make Oshkosh a better community today, a better community tomorrow, make people want to come here, make people want to stay here, make people want to invest in here. And at the end of the day, hopefully we'll get another generation, but maybe a more mixed generation of people that say, I want to stay in Oshkosh. So that's where I'm at. You got anything else there, Big Boy?
You're really good at summing up discussions. That's what I have to say. Because this is not an end.
No, it's not.
This is not an end. This is a starting point. And when you understand a starting point, the conversation can begin for construction.
I don't think we're ever going to I don't think we'll ever get to the end. I really don't. Because there's always going to be another opportunity for a solution. But we can, as you said, we can start today and we can move forward every day. And if today we're better than yesterday, but not as good as we can be tomorrow, if we take that idea and every day just say, I'm going to be better at the end of today than I was yesterday, I think we can make a big impact. So I thank every one of you for being here. Again, this is not going to be the end of it. Any of you that would like to continue the conversation, please, afterwards, you can come up. You can talk with us. We can get your names. We can get contact information. Or again, just go out to the city website. Those of you who are watching this, you can go out to the city website and look at the council directory, get our emails, get our phone numbers, contact us. We're here to listen. We're here to serve you, and we are here to make Oshkosh a much better community tomorrow than it was today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, and obviously the most valuable thing that we have is our time and our ability to communicate with each other. So thank you for taking the opportunity to spend your time with us, and I know your time is valuable, so thank you very much.